Live
Live
stream
stream
is
is
on.
on.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fialka. Today is December 3rd, 2021. We want to thank Clinton Ignatov, future. What are you going to be running? Some sort of massive global village McLuhan? I don't know. But, anyways, Clinton, you're smart and I appreciate all your help. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Michael Ned Holtby. Is that it, Michael?
Yeah, that's it.
Where are you calling in from?
Sunny, not so sunny Los Angeles.
How
South
cool.
LA.
South LA. Very cool. I really appreciate your time and energy. First question is, what's the best thing for a human being?
Sleep, I think.
I like that answer. I don't get that very often. That is a good answer. What's your favorite form of
I don't get enough, so I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I wish I got more. Okay, so what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
That's a really good question. I mean, I love the book as a form. I won't say that's how I actually receive most of the information I consume these days, but it's certainly my favorite format for information.
Did you grow up a reader because your parents were reading? As an example, they told you to read, or did you pick it up on your own?
My mom's a retired elementary school teacher, so reading was always. My dad was always interested in history, and I come from a two-union working class household, so we weren't. I didn't come from a very academic or artistic household, but there was certainly value around reading and support for reading. And I think I always enjoyed books and reading books, but also making books. I was always stapling sheets of paper together and starting things. So it's a deep, long, abiding interest.
Beautiful. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, I mean, I think there's the individual answer, and I think there's a collective answer. And I think the individual answer really varies. I think there are a lot of people that that actually aren't that interested in collecting and gathering information, unfortunately, and many who are. I think collectively there's some idea of progress, and it's certainly an idea of progress has been the ruling mythos, I think, at least since the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
I mean, it's modernism in a word is some idea of progress. I think there are a lot of problems with that mythos.
We're going to get into it. That was really good. Yeah,
good.
no, I appreciate it. And is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I mean, it's structural in some sense, I think. I think that question of nature and nurture is a little difficult to answer, just because it's sort of baked into the cake of who and what we are as a civilization right now. I think people are naturally curious, though, or at least were for many years. Again, I'm not convinced everybody is participating in the great act of curiosity. But I think innately we're curious about how things work. Part of it's survival skills, right? Like if a coconut falls from a tree, I don't want to be standing under it.
Totally. I was in Costa Rica and the coconuts would fall. And we asked the guide, we go, how do you not get hit by coconuts? And they go, don't walk under coconut trees. It's
Yes.
like they're everywhere.
Yeah,
How do you not walk under them? And then you watch the dogs, and it goes, and the dog goes, and it goes, and it misses the dog, but the humans get whapped all the time.
Yeah. This is, I mean, how, think about the freeway system in Los Angeles. Like the fact that there's only one horrific accident every time you get on the freeway is a miracle, right? Like
it is a miracle.
There should be 4,000 accidents like that, given the nature of how we behave.
Yeah, no, I watched your like 15-minute Otis lecture on Freeways and Highway. That was amazing. I was right away. I was like, that's wrong. That I don't agree with that, but it was so beautiful how you put it. It was poetic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And it really got me thinking. But I like that word structural because I don't get that so often. But so structural, because you would have loved this when I say these more questions, there's a few of them. Like, is it more innate or more invented? Of course, it's both, and it depends.
Yeah,
but the question I'm sort of going is your hunch. What do you lean more towards? Well, you can't separate form for content or feeling from thinking. But this woman the other day, some artist, she goes, I don't agree with your use of the word more does not function in that question. I love it because of course it doesn't. I mean, these are all stupid questions. It's really what you do is you put them into the context you want. They're just like
Sure.
little, yeah.
Sure, yeah. I would say individuals it would be innate, and socially it would be structural.
Yeah. Well, no, so you're saying invented is structural? I thought you meant structural meant innate.
Well, invented, I mean, by structural, I mean learned, right? It's learned behavior.
Learned, yeah. So instead of saying innate, invented, it's learned.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me, semantically at least.
Yeah. The other word is people go, don't use the word invented, use discover. And so it's just like, it's, T.S. Eliot said it best. When I talk to you, I got to use words. Words don't always work, but we want to sort of agree they kind of work. Yes. So we're going to keep talking.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the built-in failure of language, but we keep using it.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes, I think so. Yes. And maybe the other way around sometimes too.
Yeah. Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Well, this goes back to what we were just talking about with language, right? The whole enterprise of thinking is something that happens in language. And we've invented language as a way of articulating thought and sharing and communicating that thought. So I don't think it's possible to think outside of language.
Whoa, you must have ESP because you anticipated the question 2 down, but let's try this one first.
Okay.
I don't know what I think until I fill in the blank.
Breathe.
Oh my God, that is a great answer. I never get that.
Well, we have to breathe to keep thinking.
Yeah, but do you do yoga?
No.
Wow, that was a good answer. I love that answer.
I know. I've lived in Los Angeles for 26 years and I don't do yoga. There's something terribly wrong with me.
No, it does. You don't have, it can be anywhere in the world. But it's funny because I got that question. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I've said it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I wrote it or write it. but I thought you'd get a kick out of this. Walter Benjamin in 1935, and the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, quotes George Duhamel. Do you know is that the way you pronounce his last name? Do you know this guy?
I think so. Yeah.
Duhamel. He says, I can no longer think what I want to think. My thoughts have been replaced by moving images. So, can humans think without language?
I don't think so. I mean, I think our bodies respond to sensations all the time. I think there are things that we're reacting to, like my eyebrow just itched and my thumb went up and scratched it, and I realized I thought about it after I did it. So, I think we do things involuntarily without thinking about them, and then we might have a thought about them if we notice that we're doing them. We probably do things all the time, all of us, involuntarily without thinking about it. Breathing is one of them. How often are we thinking about the act of breathing?
That's really well put, because I never watched these interviews, and my wife was watching one today, and I watched how the person itched their face, then I itched my neck, and it was like, that's George Lakoff. He said like 80 or 90% of the things we do, not just itching, are subconscious or unconscious. We're not even, but we want to think we're more conscious of what we're doing, but then 80%, I mean. So Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Michael, what do you do when language breaks down, when it doesn't work?
Well, as somebody who works in the field of visual art, I would say this is one of the places where art actually serves a really important cultural function. Visual art and music too, for that matter, can articulate things that are sometimes not easily articulated in language, and can sometimes be. I mean, I'm very reluctant to claim that any art could be universal, although I think some music might have a shot at it. But I do think it's a place where things could function outside of language and communicate. But yeah, it's a great question. I mean, Chomsky's definition is I think correct and extraordinary. And obviously we're in a cultural moment where language is radically breaking down.
Really well put. It really evoked Walter Pater saying, all art aspires to the condition of music. It's like painting, literature, poetry, everything wishes it can be as cool as music is. But you put visual art, and then you say also music, which I really like, because I'll give you an example of, McLuhan uses this example when they showed a film to, I don't know how you're supposed to say it now, but people who live in the jungle. What are you supposed to say? Indigenous people? Or you can't say primitive, can you? What do you say? What's the proper word?
I would say indigenous.
Okay, indigenous people are shown a movie, and they don't usually watch movies. They're not trained or seen movies, and there's two characters acting out some scene, and a chicken runs through the scene in the back, and then the cultural anthropologists ask the people about the movie, and they go, what happened to that chicken?
Yeah.
They don't care about the two people acting.
Yeah, they haven't been trained on D.W. Griffith and
yeah. But there was a universality there, because something in that framed moving image they related to.
Yeah, I mean, the filmmaker and artist Chris Marker, so much of his work dealt with the human face and and the universal attraction to the human face. We all respond to it.
Dude, no one in 40 years interviewing brings up Marker before I do. So right there, you go to the top of the class. That was amazing. I mean, Sans Soleil is the godhead of all films. I mean, you just, I mean, Chris Marker. The beauty of Chris Marker is no one could shoot a picture of him. You know, my friend Lynn Sachs worked with him, and she didn't even know that. And she goes, "Could we get a picture together?" He goes, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
And then when he died, the Oscars showed a picture of him in their, here's the 20 important people in film that died, and they showed a picture of Chris Marker. I mean, that was the epitome of the flip. Any guy who takes his name from magic markers can't do all that bad.
It's also the first time the Academy Awards have even noticed this incredibly important, extraordinary filmmaker. I mean, La Jetée is probably at the top of my list.
Yeah.
Of all films, and Sans Soleil is
yeah.
Right
So
behind.
well, then La Jetée, how many seconds is the moving image? One, or I always get that wrong. It's all stills, but there's 1 second of moving image, or do you know the exact amount?
I suspect it's 24 frames, right? That would be the sort of logical move.
Right, 1 second. 1 second is actually moving film. Okay. Well,
Right.
let's not go
I
down.
mean, actually, the whole thing is moving film, right?
Right. But it's yeah, it's an irony how I'm not properly wording it, where it's actually not a camera zooming or filming still images.
Right.
It's actually moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we should just do a whole podcast on Marker then someday. But let's move on. That was really good.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Your observations, again, another stupid more question. Are humans more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
I think probably more feeling beings.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true for me, but I think in general.
Okay, very good. And these are 2 Alan Turing questions from 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I don't believe in a soul. I believe in soul, but I don't believe in a soul. So yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
That's fine. Can machines think?
Yes.
Very good. Everybody's been, this is a new question I've just added in the last half or year, and everybody goes, well, they can't think like humans, but they can think. So it's interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
Squirrels can think.
But isn't that anthropomorphizing the word think on squirrels?
Yes. Yeah. I'm working with our sort of provisional definition of thinking, right?
Yeah, right. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I mean, I find great happiness and meaning, so this could be another circular case.
That's fine. Let's move on. The next one is consciousness. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Is like consciousness there bubbling away and we're actually detecting it, or are we actually creating it? And again, I know it's more, it's not one or the other, but just any feelings on that thought.
Thoughts on that feeling?
I don't know. I don't know if one can know the difference.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Light.
Audre Lorde,
this is where involuntary instincts in the LA freeway system like comes in again. Like,
right.
How quickly do I like get over the other lane so the truck doesn't squash me? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's thinking or just reacting.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Well,
If you know 5 to 10 seconds ahead of time that that truck may squash you, that's thinking.
yeah.
But if you just do it, as it's happening, that might be precognitive.
Yeah. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Yvonne Rainer responded, "You can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest?
I mean, those are both artists I value a lot. But I wasn't expecting your question.
Well, and here's the interesting conundrum with this. I set up some of my questions with these cute thoughts. Then people think that the quote is supposed to apply to the question. It doesn't necessarily. It's like, you put it in the context you want, but people
Yeah.
think, "You mean to dismantle the master's house?" And then they'll go, "I don't even believe in masters."
Yeah. Um, right. We've been trying to work around that language lately, finally. Uh, I mean, I think some of the most profound tools are the old tools or the overlooked tools, or
Yeah.
things like food can be a profound transformative tool. It's also a necessity, but in terms of rethinking um, social structures, economies, hierarchies. So I think some of the old tools are still um, relevant, and perhaps more relevant than ever.
Was a great answer, Michael, because I had someone say intuition and consciousness raising and this, and it's like people, I'm not going to say, well, that's not a new tool. Food is an amazing answer because people don't think of that. Someone told me once, because I've studied conflict resolution, and it's like, how do you keep your governments from going to war? And he said, have the two leaders sit down and they eat a pizza together.
Mm,
Food is a profound tool, and it's
yeah.
transformative. That was a good, perfect answer. I love it. What do you
Although
worry
if you feed two world leaders a pizza and one of them uses their hands, they might be castigated by a certain set of people. But if one uses a fork, they might, lose their own home base. I don't know. Food's
it's
complicated too. We
it's very complicated. That
but
was a
but the thing about food is that it's an old tool, but that is constantly being reimagined and rethought. In terms of living in a globalist society and economy, we have profound access to foods we didn't even know about, both ingredients but also techniques, cultures. So I think food's just a really useful um, way of thinking about the way the old can be new again.
it's like studying advertising. Love Supreme became Burrito Supreme. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
uh, um, I worry about some of my students. I worry about people that aren't fed, homeless people that don't have a bed to go to.
Yeah, beautiful. That's deep, dude. I appreciate that. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we may be able to learn to cope with what we don't like about the invention. So, one of McLuhan's main probes was why, and this is the question I'm asking you, why do humans ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, not enough people are paying attention to art. I mean, I think that's sort of the statistical answer to the question. Um, I think artists are in general, finely tuned. I think McLuhan's uh, idea of the antenna as a kind of extension of the human is it's a useful metaphor for thinking about what we might call sensitivity.
Yeah.
I teach at Cal Arts. My students are incredibly sensitive, and I mean that in all senses of sensitive. Um, so it's part of. I think it's part of what leads somebody to be an artist in the first place is their sensitivity and their uh, profound. I mean, profound in the sense that it's powerful, but it can also be completely debilitating in some cases. A kind of sensitivity that most people don't have. I think that that's part of what the vocation of being an artist is. I have students that could do some students that could do 20 different things and be successful at them. I also have students that could only be an artist. There is no other thing on earth that they could do.
Yeah.
And part of it is completely based on that having that antenna. But
Really.
they're 99 point whatever percentage of society does not have that kind of sensitivity that leads them to be an artist. And so I think that's always one of the struggles for artists learning how to communicate with an audience, or even to be aware that they have an audience that they're communicating with, is that they are attuned to things that most people aren't. And so that's always the gap, right? That's always you can go back to whatever utopian aspirationist movement throughout modernism, and the the ambitions of the Russian suprematist painters or Russian futurists, didn't align with Stalin's plan for the people, right? He wanted to show pictures of like people working in fields and contentedly working in fields, instead of geometric shapes in space, and part of that's just because those geometric shapes in space, whatever they aspire to, in terms of some new a kind of proposal for a new reality about space and time, um, that just was not easily communicated. That was just not gonna that was never gonna go over with the 99%. And that's just always been the central paradox of the avant-garde, right? Is that it's never going to be available to everybody. So I I think it continues to be um, the challenge for sensitive artists is um, being able to share their findings.
It's really well put. It evoked a lot of me. Thank you. I've especially struggled with that paradox of I love the futurists, and I love the fact that they said burn all the art museums down, and like being in the arts, you don't really want to do that, but you want to study. And what you said when you brought up the gap, I thought of McLuhan's great line. He goes, "The gap is where the action is." He wasn't talking about the clothing store. But the
No,
next,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah. The next question is, do artists have a moral obligation?
Insofar as we all have moral obligations. I don't know why artists should be more morally obligated, or less morally obligated than anybody else. Um, I think being an artist comes with profound responsibilities, and sometimes it takes a lifetime to understand those. But it goes back to some of what I was saying about communication. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't want to separate artists into having a different moral obligation than anybody else.
Yeah. Michael, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
I was just talking about this recently. I remember the first time I was on an airplane, and it was probably when I was 3 or 4, flying to North Carolina to visit some family. And I just have a real distinct memory of the quality of light on the plane.
Boy, so many people recalling their earliest memory has something to do with visual, but it also reminds me of one of McLuhan's favorite jokes was that the kid gets on the airplane with his parent and says, "When do we get smaller?"
Amazing.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
uh, which memory are you talking about?
You're answering a question with a question. You win. That's what this is all about.
I'll try not to do that too often, but
No, dude, you get that. It's really we're about embedding new questions and new metaphors. Okay, well, tell me an early role model or someone who had an impact on you. And it's two-part within your immediate family
Mhm.
and then outside your immediate family, just briefly. And what specifically was that impact?
I mean, both of my parents come to mind as important role models. I mean, they had the most profound, direct impact on who I am in different ways.
Well,
And
like, what'd you mainly get from your mom and mainly get from your dad? Just off the top of your head, what would you
yeah, I
say?
mean, my mom was a teacher, so and that's become my path. So
Yeah.
I don't think I could possibly teach first, second, and third grade as she did for many years. It would not bring me joy. Um, but certainly, as in terms of a kind of model, and my father died when I was 15, and I'm an only child, so which also means I have a very intense relationship with my mother. It's a good relationship. Now, but I think obviously having such a tiny family uh, puts a lot of intensity on that relationship. My father was a union organizer and an incredible diplomat, and somebody who had a really incredible memory for facts and names and dates, and I have that kind of memory. Um, so yeah, all of that,
Did
I
they
think.
raise you a particular religion?
So my mother is Catholic and my father was Lutheran. And Catholics always win that battle. So I was raised Catholic.
Do you pray?
No. I listen to John Coltrane though.
Nice. The Church of Coltrane. I've shown that documentary. If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
You're wrong.
That is a good answer. I've never had that answer. Do evil people exist or does evil use people as a vehicle?
um he's sitting here on my shoulder right now. Uh I think I'm quoting somebody important, but I think we all have capacity for good and evil.
Yeah.
Some use their evil more, and some use their good more.
Yeah. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? This one I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mhm.
JFK said, "Forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name." And Fellini says, "I need an enemy." So the question is, Michael, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I I think it's possible to acknowledge an enemy as a human, provided the enemy is a human, you know?
Yeah.
I've had some animals who have been quite antagonistic toward me, but I don't think
Yeah.
that's what Alan Watts is thinking about. Um, I I don't think it's wrong to acknowledge the humanity of an enemy, or to empower them as humans. Um, I think that might actually be a way to mitigate a certain amount of evil.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Alan Watts. I've even slept on his steamship in Sausalito, but
Wow.
No, it's a complicated
That's
thing
amazing.
because I have troubles with Errol Morris's film Fog of War. It's a great film, but
Mhm.
I would always say it's a humanizing a war criminal. And my wife's dad is a similar to your dad, was a union organizer. He worked with Cesar Chavez and Ralph Nader, very aware. And he says humanizing anyone is good, if they're a war criminal or not. So I like that what you said about humanizing. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this also goes to, Hannah Arendt's
yeah,
banality of evil too, right? Like some
yeah,
of the people that committed the most atrocious acts are humans, but
yeah,
it's important to acknowledge that is our capacity as humans, you know?
yeah. Yep. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin over 100 years ago, where he worked at his cinema called Volta Cinema. And he basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Faulkner says years later, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
Uh, I I feel like we have enough hours in the day to do both.
That's good.
I mean, I've seen Terrence Malick's Tree of Life, which is a very long movie, but it hasn't prohibited me from looking at actual trees.
That is a great tree of life. Isn't he that guy is a sweetheart. I love
That's like a 5-hour movie or something, right? It's
No,
like
I
the
don't think
longest
it's
movie
5.
ever.
I think it's 3. In fact, there's an article in the New York Times, like, either today or last couple days that say movies are getting too long now because Netflix is now allowing people all the docs are going from 2 to 6 hours now, and
Yeah.
no, but Terrence Malick is a beautiful person because he knows, that you use the word profound and transformative. He uses cinema in a different way.
Mhm.
It's beautiful, and that was a good answer. Um, so what first attracted you to pursue? Teaching is one thing you've done, but
Mhm.
I don't know your history completely. Are you a fine artist and a filmmaker as well?
Good question. One of my students yesterday was saying that I seem like I've lived 20 lives or something like that, and I actually kind of have. But I I have made visual art mostly in high school and before, like all through
Yeah.
childhood, and then in college at University of Wisconsin Madison, um, I thought I was going to pursue constitutional law, but then I found out you could study film, and that's all I needed to know, and so I did that. It was in the context of a communication arts department, so with heavy emphasis on film theory, film history,
Yeah.
semiotics, things like that. I was always attracted to theory. I also have a degree in political theory. So all that stuff really excited me. And it took me a while to understand how much it excited me. But I was also making 16 millimeter film, and it's ultimately what moved me to Los Angeles. I'm actually friends with one of the editors on Tree of Life, by the way. I know it's not 5 hours. I'm not the poor guy who had to, sift through all that footage.
Well, Jim Cox edited either Days of Heaven or the other one, the first two, and he's not allowed. He signed like something. He's not
non-disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah, the disclosure. But anyways, so basically, the question is you put it in the context you want as a creative artist, as a teacher, as a writer, as a curator. I mean, you many things. Is a screenwriting teacher told me great art or great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great film or great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Oh, that's a great question for me. And it's one we talk about a lot at CalArts. I think because I see my project most often as working to help articulate or elucidate the work of other artists as a critic and as a curator, that I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to get at their intentionality, and even where there's a gap between intention and result. Like I actually want, like, the artist I'm writing about, provided they're still alive, is actually the most important audience for me in terms of what I'm writing about, because I want to tell them what their work is doing, or as I see it. My own intentions in relationship to that position are maybe less clear.
Yeah.
I've written a lot of criticism where my partner or someone will read it and they're like, yeah, but did you like it? And I'm like, I invested a lot of time in it. So to me, that's more important than liking something. But I do see my project as one of sorting through other people's work and trying to make sense of it. That includes my students. I mean, it's actually something that's continuous through my different roles that I occupy right now.
Yeah. So that really brought up a lot, and I appreciate that. But before we shift a hair there, this second question I usually ask in that regard is, when you're creating your art, or Duchamp says there's no art without an audience. When you're creating your art, how much are you thinking of your audience?
I mean, when I'm writing criticism, I'm certainly thinking of, I think when I started writing criticism, which I actually started doing in high school with my high school newspaper, I was writing music reviews. And I think I knew who my audience was because it was my high school. And then, when I started writing about art, writing for Artforum, when I was in grad school, I think I was imagining a much larger audience, and there actually aren't that many people that that read art criticism these days. And I've grown to accept and embrace that reality. So I'm writing for a pretty small, highly specialized audience. But again, the most important person I'm writing for is the artist I'm writing about. And also my mom, who is a non-specialist. And when I started writing for Artforum, I got my mom a subscription to Artforum. Her first response was, there are a lot of naked people in here.
That's totally, I got to interject really fast. I go to art school. I go to a University of Michigan from like 72 to 80. I'm there. Okay. This is pre them having film theory classes, but
Mhm.
there are some. So I'm really taking film history, film theory classes before they were existing.
Yeah.
And I'm studying art history. And I get Linda Belgalis. Is that her last name? Belgalis?
Linda Benglis.
Benglis.
Mhm.
Linda Benglis is famous holding the dildo shot from Art Forum. And I take it back to my friends in
November 1974, I think.
and I take it back to my friends in Flint, Michigan, the city I was born in. I goes, this is what I'm studying. And it's like, holy shit, this is okay. This is really good because you know, my big aspiration in life is to be written up in Art Forum. But the thing about Art Forum is that I love Art Forum, but I only look at the pictures. It's the opposite of Playboy. I don't read the articles, I look at the pictures, but I do read the bios on all the writers. So what you brought up was really important in you're saying it's not necessarily that you like it. Now that's resonates with McLuhan saying his goal was like suspended judgment
Mm.
in saying understanding is not having a point of view. When you're in your lonely teenage room, you can go, I love Facebook or I
Yeah.
hate Facebook. But
Mhm.
when you're with one or more people, if you want to suss out how it's changing us, you don't
Mhm.
want to say really you love it or hate it. But now, going to music, my friend says the three T's, the tenets are taste, theory, and technique. So, theory is what you can apply to you studying. Technique, you know, how am I going to put the words together? But how does one acquire taste or aesthetics?
Especially being raised in Janesville, Wisconsin, it's one of the great mysteries. I don't know. I don't know what, I had my interest in art comes out of being somebody who was making it. And I had some very cool teachers in high school that Mrs. Bell, I'll just name them. Mrs. Belling, who was my high school art teacher, and Miss Adams, who was my AP English teacher. And they actually both turned me on to Jasper Johns.
Nice.
And so I got Michael Crichton's monograph on Jasper Johns. It was published by Abrams, coinciding with his Johns's first major Whitney exhibition. This is Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park,
Right.
who is also an art collector, and that book, in part because of Crichton's essay and the pictures in that essay, it was my first introduction to Marcel Duchamp. It was my first introduction to John Cage, to Manet, maybe to, I don't know, the Exquisite Corpse. All of these extraordinary things that I had never encountered before. It was really a gateway drug. Um, a portal in some way for stuff I would become interested in much later. I mean, I don't know when I actually became interested in John Cage per se, but I that's the moment he entered my consciousness. I got it from the library in Janesville, Wisconsin.
Yeah. No,
So big,
libraries are really, really big influence, and your teachers were brilliant. That was great. Because was your mom actually taking you to art museums and art galleries?
no, no. We went to, my we went on a lot of. My dad was more interested in things like historical museums, so we did more of that kind of thing. In terms of local cultural tourism, and Janesville is kind of middle of nowhere, but also an hour and a half from Milwaukee, a couple hours from Chicago, hour from Madison. So, places like the Field Museum in Chicago were things that I had visited.
Yeah. So Michael McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. He calls it human sensorium. So clothing is an extension of our skin. Knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera, a projector's extension of our eyelid. What does the writing utensil extend for you? Even whether it's a pencil or a keyboard, what humanness does it extend?
It's funny you mentioned this because I've reverted to using pencils and a clipboard, and this is a weird, like one of my weird COVID things that I started just to keep me focused when I'm, I taught on Zoom for 1.5 years, and it was a way of staying focused. And I hadn't been taking notes, with pencil in a long time. It it reminds me how terrible my handwriting has become. To the bane of my, third grade teaching mother who used to teach cursive handwriting. Yeah, it's, my own note taking is very, very idiosyncratic. It's funny. I was never good at typing class, but I used my keyboard so much that I've actually become quite fast at writing and typing without thinking about it very much. It is, most intuitive. I'm very clumsy on a phone, and I actually prefer to be clumsy on a phone. Like I will not, I don't want to, I don't want to get good at typing on a phone because I kind of hate using it as a typing tool or writing tool. So I'm kind of stubbornly resistant to it. I have this, I've had this premonition that we're going to evolve to have little hands that grow out of our thumbs, so that we can type on phones better. And then by that time, we'll be using telepathy or something, and we won't actually need our extra little hands that grow out of our thumbs. So maybe the horror, it's a kind of a Cronenbergian nightmare in my head, but hopefully it never comes to that. But anyways, I don't want to evolve too much more.
It's great. So Peter Greenway said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. Our experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way or doing something completely different. Like me and you could watch Tony Conrad's The Flicker right now. He might not have intended it to tell a story per se, but both of us could watch it and have stories go through our head. So just any quick thoughts.
We could have epileptic seizures.
Exactly. And he was forced to put that in because, you have to put the warning before the film now. But any kid can watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I met Tony Conrad, and he's an incredible storyteller. But I don't particularly see The Flicker having a narrative bone in its body, and I think that's okay. I think there's a whole tradition of filmmaking that has nothing to do with narrative, and I think that that part of film history has really been it's been incredibly marginalized, in part because there's a much larger economy, an industry built around storytelling. People like Lucas and Spielberg, who of course had a huge influence on me as a kid. I can tell you which theater I saw all of the Star Wars movies, who I was with, how I felt, all of that. But they have completely reduced film to a narrative language. Lucas is, there's a new museum being built 2 miles from my house. That's a museum of narrative art. We never heard of such a thing as a museum of narrative art before. Anyways, I don't want to diminish the importance of narrative, because obviously narrative has an important place in our culture, but I also think there's a really important tradition of filmmaking that goes back almost to the beginning. that's not necessarily narrative.
Yeah, I think yeah, you put it well because basically cinema is only about 130 years old. It was hijacked about 110 years ago by narrative, and we just
That's
seen
right.
the history. We filmed plays, and it's funny because George Lucas did enter the Ann Arbor Film Festival, which is 60 years old, and in March, and it's half the age of the medium itself. And the next question is, if me and you and George Manupelli were sitting around 60 years ago, time travel, and we said, okay, should this be more inclusive or more exclusive? That's the question. I asked Chick Strand, she's starting Canyon Cinema at the same time with Bruce Bailey. She says, we were trying to recreate our 11-cent movie going experience. So we'd show a short film, cartoon, a newsreel, and then add an experimental film. Brackage came along and says, no, don't show that other stuff. Just show experimental films. So just bottom line, should we be more inclusive or more exclusive?
It's interesting because I think about that. I actually was just thinking about Canyon Cinema in a piece that I've been writing about Pauline Oliveros, who was part of the San Francisco Tate Music Center, which was housed in the same building as Canyon Cinema when it first opened, as well as Anna Halprin's dance workshop and KPFA radio, etc. But the Anthology Film Archive in New York, they showed
Hitchcock.
Well, they showed Hitchcock. They showed the Russian filmmaker Avant-Garde. They showed Laurel and Hardy. They showed cartoons. They showed Tony Conrad. So I'm eclectic. I actually believe in we should all be as eclectic as possible. So
okay, that you brought up this word too, and that was a good answer. I appreciate it. What are the services, disservices of marginalizing experimental film? Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in '49. Regular folks could start developing aesthetic on experimental painting. There's no Bruce Conner or Maya Deren on Life magazine covers. Generally, it's privileged, entitled, I call them rich art kids who develop an avant-garde aesthetic and dominate the experimental film world. Any comment?
Yeah, I mean, just because you mentioned Tony Conrad, I was also thinking about Jack Smith, and who's lived with Tony, and Tony did the music for a number of Jack Smith's films. Experimental film is also a space for weirdos and queers and people that just had no place in any kind of mainstream, and also weren't going to get on the cover of Life magazine. So yeah, I don't know. I think
but I mean, what's your students? Are they rich kids or are they both?
Well, increasingly they have to be wealthy in some way just to even be aware that it's a possibility for them. I mean, our tuition is $52,000 a year, which is less than USC or some other other places. It's not like it's the most expensive school on earth, but we're not deeply endowed. We don't have monstrous generous scholarships that we can offer students. So students who would come from a household like the one I did would just look at the sticker price and be like, there's no way. Although some take a radical leap, and there are scholarships. It's we try to help those students, but it's hard to even think that they would feel welcome at an institution that has such a alarming sticker price. And that's something that my colleagues and I, it's one of the things that keeps us awake at night.
You know, I always learned being in LA for 41 years, I've always learned, and I've lectured at CalArts a couple times and love, appreciate it, seen some amazing concerts there. And Christo lectured there. I saw that. And you know, Disney started it so he could funnel the kids right into his business. And then Pee Wee Herman and Mike Kelly came out and like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
you know, that's what people. So it's all good. Michael Apted, the great director. I asked him 40 years ago, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? He says, because we've learned to take in information faster. Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in the 20s, but it really flourished in the 80s with rock videos. And Marty Scorsese even said, I edit my films faster because of MTV. So I asked this question with a bias. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Oh, I think we can take in information much faster. I think our brain has evolved to do that. Whether or not we can sustain complex thought about those things is a different question. But I think we can receive and assimilate stimuli much quicker. And I think there's probably scientific evidence to say that that's true, but whether or not we can have a critical reflection.
Yeah.
If we're constantly being bombarded with stimuli, we don't have much time for critical reflection. I think that's part of it's part of our problem right now as a civilization.
Is it literally possible to multitask?
No, but it's very easy to convince oneself that it's possible.
I like that. That's like Warhol said, it's not who you are, it's who you think you are. I like that. Okay, what was the motive of the cave artist? Not what Herzog said or the New Yorker article he based his film on or anthropologist, your hunch.
I think maybe it's like Sandlot football, where you're drawing up a play. Like, this is how we're gonna take down the elk.
Nice.
I don't know. I mean, it's a why would we represent those things? But I think, I think there is something, I don't know, game planning maybe.
Yeah. No, I like the metaphor is beautiful. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
I think it depends on the gravity of the situation.
Yeah. Gravity, what a word, dude. That was good. You've accomplished a lot. Rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What plays the biggest role, second and third?
For me personally, or just in general?
No, for you personally, yeah.
I mean, maybe it's the same. Luck, ambition, skill. Is that that's not my answer. That's
Yeah. Those are the three choices: luck, ambition, and skill. Yeah.
I almost want to add a fourth term, which is something like intuition, even though it's not a word I use a lot.
What's the word before intuition? Oh, you mean the word is like intuition, Like?
No, the word is intuition. I'm always hesitant to use the word intuition because I think
that's good. I like when people add a fourth. My friend added necessity as a fourth too. And I'll just break it down because we can move on. It's stupid because most people don't want to say skill because it sounds bragatory. And my friend the other day said skill, ambition, and then luck. A lot of people say luck first, and that's like the more you practice, the luckier you get. But I changed it. This is how I like to talk about the questions with the people. It used to be, is ambition based more on fear or joy? and everybody would go fair. And then it was too simple. And so I changed it because Friedkin said in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. So, I mean, it's not that, some people want to like make a value judgment on ambition or skill or luck. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Let's move on. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Probably a screwball comedy.
Oh my God. Who invented screwball comedies? It's a trick question, Michael.
I don't know if I know the answer.
It's Preston Sturges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really invent them, but the beauty of Preston and in your saying screwball comedies is amazing because I compare it with Zappa. They're alchemists. They take two known things and put them together and invent a third known thing.
Uh-huh.
And then this is what Preston and Frank did. Then they satirize their new third invention. Then they satirize it. They don't even take their new thing. So Preston, that's why the Coen brothers are Preston Sturges wannabes. And if we told them that, they would go, "Thanks for the compliment."
Yes. I mean, Hudsucker Proxy is like
totally.
It's direct,
Hey, it's like the mature poet steals, the immature poet imitates. If you're going to steal, you might as well steal from the best.
I'm more of a Laurel and Hardy person than a Preston Sturges person, but
I'm with you 100%. Amazing.
And I don't know if that's luck or skill that I've become that kind of a person, but
you mean, wait, you don't know if it's luck or skill that you become that person or that they were important?
No, that I've, discovered Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah. No, that's really well put. Okay. And George Mandupelli says his mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. Cecil Taylor says I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Again, it's a stupid either or question, but just in general, is art making more self-expression or more a vehicle or vessel for whatever dominant technology or culture is present?
I'm gonna answer this in a really personal way, which is, yesterday my co-instructor and I went through the studios of our first year foundation students, see what they've been up to. These are 18, 19-year-olds for the most part. It's incredible just sort of what they do, even in their first semester of art school without really knowing what they're doing, or having much guidance. And there's just a kind of raw beauty to it that is, it convinces me, yes, these people are artists, they are in the right place. We're going to actually make them way more aware of what they're doing and probably complicate their relationship to their joy. And the sort of channeling of things. But I think I think real artists are people that are able to just channel, and then maybe reflect later. But there's just they are vessels for something. And I think part of why I turned to writing and criticism and curating and teaching is because I had too much of an analytical impact, or interference. I had too much of a filter, and I wanted whatever I was doing to have a relationship to history and culture and all of these things. And I'm like, I should just be a critic and a curator because that's the stuff I care about. But you know, you know, it's amazing to think of Cecil Taylor as somebody who saw himself as a vessel, because there's just I mean, there's so much fierce intelligence in his work too, and so much of an awareness of tradition. You know, I mean, he was as abstract as he got eventually. You know, he was doing Thelonious Monk covers when he started,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so you know, I think he understood himself as part of a continuity, but maybe a continuity of vessels. You know.
Yeah. And it's beautiful how you put it. I really appreciate that. You saying I'm going to answer it in a personal way. And it also evoked in me this like, yeah, you see these kids doing this out of the purity, and they're not fucked up by anything, art school or NFTs or whatever.
Yeah,
That
we have to try not to ruin them. That's
yeah,
the
you know, you want them to become more. You want them to become a little more Mike Kelly than Gigi Allen. You know, that's how my young kids, my young friends, that's how they know performance art is like Gigi Allen. I goes to go to fucking Jack Smith or somebody else. Not, but anyways, not to make a value judgment.
yeah.
Ken,
Well, I was just going to say, that unfortunately, neither of those are very sustainable models. But you
yeah,
know, I did
yep.
watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions last night and saw Pat Smear like playing with Paul McCartney, and it was like, okay, so you
Right.
did pretty well after the Germs, and
Cool. That's good. I'm glad to hear that, Pat. Can art make then they showed a picture of the kid on the what Darby Crash who died the night McLuhan.
yeah, exactly.
Darby Crash, McLuhan, and John Lennon all died the same night. Yikes. That's the whole history of the. And so, can art making be egoless?
No.
Ah, that, was Freud right?
Which part?
Yeah, that's the right answer. Is
I mean,
perception
the art world still uses Freud, you know.
yeah,
It's like
no, everybody
Freud and Marx are alive, and Freud, Marx, Darwin, they're all alive and well
oh,
in
totally.
the art world.
Is perception reality?
When you first encounter it, yes.
That is a good answer. Thank you. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Yeah. There are days where I believe I'm going to get to everything on my to-do list.
Oh, that is great. You know, I make a to-do list, and then if I lose the list, I get the day off. Then I start a new list for the next day, and it says find old to-do list.
That's good. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, if I lost my to-do list, I would also mean I would lose my phone, which would probably ruin my day.
Well, here's the art piece. You should write me up in art forum. I proposed an art piece where you super glue your cell phone to your hand. And it was for this curated show, and the guy didn't accept it. You know, it was just the instructions of it. And one person I showed it to said, "Oh, that's a good idea." Taking art for real. So tell me one, Michael, this is really
I'm
fun.
making a note of this, Jerry.
Say it again.
I'm making a note of this.
Yeah, make a note of it. Tell me one. This is really fun, and you really get it. I appreciate it, Michael. Tell me one major element of your, let's say, your art criticism, art teaching career. One major element that stayed the same, and one major element that's changed.
You know, I think when I first start, I'll start with change maybe. When I first started teaching, I felt a need to tell the students everything I knew.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait.
And I've become more judicious in my you know, outpouring. I've become a better listener.
Okay, you know what, that resonates amazing. You know what Bob Dylan learned from the Bible? Never tell anyone everything you know. So whenever I meet any kid like who's like CalArts capable and they're really interested and I'm blabbing everything, I'll tell them everything I know. And it's I always go, I'm not supposed to be doing this, but you're a listener, and it seems as though you're listening and you're absorbing it and
Mm,
giving me, feedback. And I find these kids sometimes, and the main thing is if they're willing to do follow-up.
mhm.
You have a structure where your follow-up is they're gonna get their grade or however they're gonna pass or,
Yeah,
you have that, but I don't have that, so it's rare, but some of the people I've been able to work with actually do follow-up, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I mean,
It's
I'm
a
also, I'm somebody that believes in the teaching as a kind of time release capsule or a, creeper weed, like I don't expect whatever I'm doing to always immediately resonate or even make sense.
No, I'm gonna do a lecture for CalArts, creeper weed no, teaching at CalArts as creeper weed. You
Yeah,
know Go ahead.
the one thing that stayed the same, I think,
Yeah.
is and I was actually teaching it at USC before I was at CalArts, but I think the thing that stayed the same is I'm famous for my uncomfortably long pregnant pauses,
Oh, nice.
and that will probably never change.
That is important. It's the first thing I write in my suggestions before these interviews. I said, "Silence is okay."
Yeah, I appreciated that
Yeah, and I'm saying the people like and if, like,
'cause I'm good
some
at it.
yeah, and somebody's watching these on YouTube, they're like, that's again, the gap is where the action is. But again, I've gotta do this one thing. Doug Harvey, this art
Yeah,
critic,
I know Doug.
Doug wrote once reading I have like 300 proposals for workshops to get hired at CalArts and whether he said, after I read those, it seems Jerry should have his own department at CalArts. And I was like, boy, I could use that, blah, blah. Anyways, um, Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you've turned into a strength.
It's a great question. I don't know if it's a weakness or not. I'll go back to the fact that I was not raised in a very cultured family. And I'm like teaching in one of the citadels of contemporary culture. And I refer to that often, I bring my background and my sort of long gestation period into the conversation. And it's mysterious in some ways that I ended up where I am, but I try to acknowledge that or even foreground it sometimes.
It's good. I love that word mysterious because Auden the poet says, the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. Now we're both art. We like, no, art's good for you, but it could just be fucking pacifying us so we don't, live life. But I believe that it's both and
Yeah,
neither.
yeah.
But,
It's
but
it's nutrients,
yeah, nutrients is good.
fuel.
Yeah. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
It doesn't happen very often. I was without getting into too many specifics, I was curating a show with somebody, and I finally blew my stack at one point, and she was so happy because I
Ah,
because I was so zen like about everything. Seemingly. I mean, I'm not always zen-like inside, but I try to maintain calm on the
Yeah.
exterior, but sometimes it's just necessary um, release valve, right? So things don't.
It's good.
Yeah,
Anger can be a productive emotion when it's a necessary release valve.
yeah.
That's
I
good.
don't use it much, but
Yeah.
that's why we have release valves.
Yes, very good. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
History.
Hmm. What caused matriarchy?
What caused matriarchy?
Yeah.
I mean, women literally put new people into the world.
Yeah. You create what you resist. It's a phrase. I'm just asking your opinion of the phrase. Like one creates what one resists. Bob Goldthwait, the comic, morphed it into "You are what you hate." James Joyce. James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Bunwell nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." Any thoughts on this? You create what you resist. Not like you, but one creates what one resists.
I mean, I think the thing you resist is the thing you think about a lot, right? It's a motivator, even if it's motivating you to go in the opposite direction. It's almost like a literally magnetic um, forces. I love that you quoted Bobcat Goldthwait. Like of all the people on
Dude,
your
I've been
on your amazing
list, yeah.
list
It's gotta it's
of
gotta be stupid
human
because
thinkers.
yeah, because in the essence, I've been trying to interview him for 20 years because he literally, I haven't followed his films. He's had a career of this as director and what's that? The clown film he made is sort of supposed I haven't even seen, but there's about two or three of his films where one of the characters say, "You are what you hate." And there it's something, and it is, we know this. I mean, Bunwell and Zappa both are who they are because they hate the Catholic religion they were raised in.
Yeah.
But they don't. They don't hate it really. They love it because it gives them something to bitch and whine about.
Oh, absolutely. No, Catholicism has been enormously productive for so many artists,
Right. Can you forget to
especially
die?
the surrealists.
Yeah, the surrealists. Well, the other that one other thing, because you told me about your knowledge of being an activist or political awareness. I like, the surrealists and Dadaists were, I go to University of Michigan, I see the burnt weenie sandwich cover, and then I go to art history class with the teacher who taught Mike Kelly and Jim Shaw. I was their and I goes, "Hey, this is the same as what I'm partying. I'm partying looking at this album cover. Cal Schenkel's covers were just like the surrealists." And then it takes me like 20 or 30 years as the surrealists were because of war. So,
Yeah.
well, then do I go, well, I hate war or I'm anti-war, but it caused the art movement that had the biggest influence on me. So
Absolutely.
it's that paradox. That's mainly what I learned from Zappa is you have to embrace contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an easy thing. Can you forget to die?
uh yeah. I mean, I think we all have to just to keep moving throughout the day, but yeah, some of us are also very aware of its significance in our destiny.
Yes. I asked for 90 minutes. We got 5 more minutes. Can we do another 5 or 10 or you got to go?
5 would be good. I do have
Okay, 5. Let's do 5 more then. We're almost done. How do you find peace of mind?
it's called Summer Break.
Oh, how cool. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Don't try to get a tan.
That is a great. Should toilet paper go over the roll or under the roll?
Toilet paper should be abolished. It
On
nearly
what,
was.
on what occasion do you lie?
I try to be pretty honest.
Let's
Or
leave it at that. That's
or
good.
not say anything.
No, that's good. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
A yacht.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Smile?
Oh my God, dude, this is amazing. We're getting it. We're cutting it at 3 minutes, 3 questions.
I'm just
Well,
getting delirious at this point,
no,
so
this is really beautiful. Okay.
I might have been lying with that last answer, by the way.
That was good. My mom said, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. She goes, well, I might answer them all differently tomorrow. Okay.
Sure.
Joseph Boy says, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh said, guard the secrets, constantly reveal them. Thornton Wilder nailed it. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. Michael, you laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm very grateful. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
I think curiosity.
Yeah. Good. Let's leave it at that because I'll add the bonus 5 Alan Watts questions. Just really brief. Who started it all?
The guy who drew the elk in the cave, I guess.
Nice. Are we going to make it?
Somewhere.
Where do we put it?
We're running out of space. I mean, nobody else makes garbage. Only humans make garbage.
Who's cleaning it up?
Women, probably.
Is it serious?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, 2 more. This has been fun. Thank you. What's the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today?
There's a much greater awareness and conversation around mental health.
Oh my God, that's the exact answer I got yesterday. Isn't that amazing? Why is that? That's amazing. We've raised our awareness.
Yeah. But we also, it also means we have problems and unmet needs for addressing those problems.
Yeah. But it's also back to Duchamp. He says there's no solution because there's no problem. So it's like, how much do we want to invest? It's back to, if we invest in this thinking, does it just empower it and make it work?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you teaching critical thinking and just having read your essay and seen you speak a little is like, that's what, we can only get better. Like what you said at the beginning, human progress can only get better if we sharpen our critical thinking skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's possible to do that. I mean, that's everybody complains, oh my God, fake news. I goes, just use your critical thinking skills. Fake and fact both come from the same root word, Latin, to make. Okay, last question, Michael. What a pleasure and an honor. What gives you the most optimism?
Youth.
Yeah. It's the answer I get the most. Michael,
Yeah,
thanks a
although,
lot.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll just add
Go
as a
ahead.
caveat that I think people need to seriously think about uh, reproduction and adding more people to this planet at this moment. But CalArts always needs new students, so I'm living in a contradiction.
Yeah. Well, you really enlightened me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your questions. It's been a healthy exercise. It's the only exercise I'm going to get today, Jerry.
Michael, just hang in there. I hope we can talk more in the future. Thank you so much.
Same. We have a Chris Marker episode.
Yes, that's it. Chris Marker is due. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Later. Bye.
Bye.